Now let's go ahead and design the functionality to register users on our website. So in order to create a registration functionality, first of all, we have to create a registration form. And we all know that whenever we have to create forms, we already have a file which is called as forms.py up over here, which basically goes ahead and allows us to create any kind of forms which we want. So we have already created a login form, and in a similar fashion, we will also be creating a user registration form as well. And we are going to then render that particular form by attaching it to a view and then passing that particular form from a view to finally a HTML template. So let's go ahead and do that. So let's first create a form here. So this is actually going to be a user registration form. So I would say class user registration form, and this is going to inherit from forms.model form. And here, as you can see, this particular form is not a simple form. It's actually a model form, which means that this particular form actually works on a particular model. So I have misspelled this. This should be forms.model form. And now this particular form, as it's a model form, we have to pass in a specific model. So this particular form needs to work on a user model. So essentially what we will be doing is that we will be using the inbuilt user model which Django has, and then making use of this form, we will actually go ahead and set up the fields inside that particular model. So let's first import that particular model here. So that particular model is actually present in django.contrib.auth. So I would say from django.contrib.auth.models, and from this I want to import the user model. So once we have this particular user model, we could pass that particular model to this particular form, which basically states that this form is going to be built for getting the data for the user model. So here, in order to pass the information about the form itself, we will have a meta class which allows us to add the information about the form itself. Now here we say that we want to target the user model, and we'll also add the fields which we want to use in this particular form. So we want to use the username, we want to use the email, and we also want to use the first name as well. So I would say first_name. Okay, so once this thing is done, now the next thing which we do is that we also go ahead and we set the password fields for this. Now the reason why we are doing this is because by default these particular password fields are called as password and password2, and we want to change the labels of those particular fields. So in here I would create a field called as password. This is going to be a form field. So this is going to be a character field, and the label here is going to be nothing but, it's going to say something like password. And then the widget here is going to be nothing but, it's going to be the widget which is used to enter the password. So that's going to be password input. So I would say forms.password input. Okay, so once this thing is done, let's also set up the password2 field as well, which is basically a field to confirm the password of the user. So here I would say forms.car field, and let's set the label of this thing to, let's say, confirm password or retype password, whatever you would like to call it. I will call it as confirm password. And for this as well, let's make use of the widget which is the password input. So I'll copy this, give a comma, and add this thing up over here. Okay, now our form pretty much looks ready, and there's also a method which we want to add here, and that method basically is going to check if the password 1 matches up with password 2, and if those two passwords match, in that particular case we actually want to display a particular message. So we are going to add that. So here I'll create a method, and this method is going to be check_password, and this is going to accept a parameter self, and here we are basically going to check if the two passwords like the password 1 and password 2 match. So here we check if, that is, if self.cleanedData, and clean data basically gives us access to the password. So we say if self.cleanedData, and from the data we are looking for the field which is password. If this is not equal to self.cleanedData, which is going to be password 2, if that happens, in that particular case, we want to raise a validation error which says that the password does not match. So I would raise a forms.validation error, and this error should say something like passwords do not match. And here, after this, we finally make this method return the password 2. So here I would say self.cleanedData and just pass in password 2. Okay, so now this form is pretty much ready. So let's go through this form one more time. So here we are basically making use of the user model, and as we want a form to store the data inside the user model, we are using a model form. And whenever you create a model form, we pass in a metadata information here, which means that this particular form is targeting the user model, and these are the fields which it's actually looking for, which is the username, email, and first name. And then here, to basically modify the default behavior of the password and password2 fields, we have actually changed the labels of these particular fields here to password and confirm password. And also we have set their widgets to be the password fields, which basically hide the text which we are typing in. And also we have created a check password method, which actually checks if the two passwords are correct. And if the two passwords do not match, then they raise a validation error. And this is specifically important because whenever we are registering users, the user must type in the accurate password, because if they don't do so, they won't be able to log in into our website. Okay, so once this is set up, our next job is to render up this particular form using a view. So in the next lecture, let's create a view for registering the user. So thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Thank you.